All right, we will be solving multi-step equations using the distributive property. Um, so the goal is to still get the variable on one side of the equation. We want the variable isolated, but we have this parentheses in the way. We have 2 being multiplied to n plus 5. So I can't just subtract it or add it. I can do one of 2 things, and I'm going to show you. First, I can distribute. We all know what distribute means. It means to multiply the number on the outside of the parentheses to everything on the inside of the parentheses. So 2 times n and 2 times 5. Now the parentheses is gone and I can focus on isolating my variable. So I look and see what's happening to my variable. It's being multiplied to n and it's being added to 10. Remember, I want my constants on the other side. So the opposite of adding 10 is subtracting 10. And if I subtract 10 from one side of my equation, I must subtract 10 from the other side of my equation. My 2n gets to come down for the right. Positive 10 and negative 10 are opposites, so they cancel out. And negative 2 minus 10 can be rewritten as a negative 2 plus a negative 10. Since they're both negative, I can add them together and I'll get negative 12. Well, n is still not isolated because now it's being multiplied to 2. So the opposite of multiplying by a positive 2 is dividing by a positive 2. And of course, whatever you do on one side, you must do on the other side. These 2's cancel out, and I am left with n is equal to a negative 6. Now, that's one way I could have did it by distributing. But what if I didn't want to distribute? Since 2 is being multiplied to n plus 5, well, what is the opposite of multiplying 2? It's dividing 2. So I can take 2 and divide it on this entire side of the equation. But if I divide 2 on one side, I must divide 2 on the other side. Well, these 2's cancel. And I'm left with n plus 5 is equal to a negative 1. Well, the goal is to isolate n. So what's happening to n? 5 is being added to it. So the only way I can get my constant on the other side of the equation is to do the inverse of adding 5, and that is subtracting 5. N comes along for the ride. Positive 5 and negative 5 cancel out. And negative 1 minus 5 can be written as negative 1 plus a negative 5. That means I have all negatives and I can add them together and get negative 6. So n is equal to negative 6. One of 2 ways you could have done it. This is another example of when we will have to distribute and maybe combine like terms. So in this case, I can't do the second method that I did by dividing by 4, because if I divide by 4 here and then I have this constant all by itself, and then 39 and 4 doesn't really go in evenly, so it wouldn't work this time. So I would have to distribute. So I would have to distribute 4 to 2x and 4 to negative 7. So 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times a negative 4 is a negative 28. I bring down my plus 5 and equals to negative 39. Now, do I have any like terms? I do. I have negative 28 and a positive 5 because like terms have the same variable and exponent. These are constants. So I did nothing to my 8x, and negative 28 plus 5, since they're different signs, I can subtract them. And I get negative 23. Now the goal is to isolate the variable. So it's being multiplied to 8 and 23 is being subtracted from it. So what is the opposite of subtracting 23? Because I want the constant on the other side. Oh, I should have changed my little things around up here, huh? All right, there we go. All right, so the opposite of subtracting 23 will be adding 23. And if I add 23 to one side, I must add 23 to the other side. Well, I did nothing to my 8x, so it will come down. Negative 23 and positive 23 are opposites. And negative 39 plus a positive 23 will give me a negative 16. So I still want to isolate x. So to isolate x, I need to do the opposite of multiplying by 8, which is dividing by 8. Well, 8 and 8 cancel out, and I am left with x is equal to negative 16 divided by 8 is a negative 2. All right, in our last example, 6x minus 3x plus 8 is equal to 16. Now, this might look like it's nothing, like you can just combine 6x and that positive 3, but this negative in front of this parentheses is telling me that a negative 1 is right here. Remember, if it's not a number in front of a parentheses, it's a 1. And since it's that negative right there, that means it's a negative 1. And I must distribute that negative 1 inside the parentheses. Now, I can't distribute negative 1 to 6x because it's not in front of 6x. It's in front of 3x plus 8. So, negative times a positive 3x and a negative times a positive 8. I check and see if I have like terms, and I do. I have positive 6x and negative 3x. Remember, same, if they have variables, all I have to do is combine the coefficients. So 6 minus 3 gives me 3x. I still want to isolate the variable, so I ask myself what's happening to x. It's being multiplied by 3, and 8 is being subtracted from it. So the only way I can move my constant to the other side is to do the inverse of subtracting 8, which is adding 8. And if I add 8 to one side, I must add 8 to the other side. So since I did nothing to my 3x, it just comes down for the ride. Negative 8 and positive 8 are opposites, so they cancel. And 16 plus 8 is 24. Still trying to isolate that variable. And it's now being multiplied by 3. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. Well, 3 divided by 3 cancels, and I'm left with x is equal to